And welcome back. Well, our look at this year's Melbourne International Comedy Festival is continuing, and right now we have got someone on the phone who's involved with two shows at this year's festival. I want to welcome to the program Damien. Welcome, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've got two shows on at the festival this year. Tell us a little bit about the two shows that you're involved with in this year's festival.
Yeah, for sure. So, the first one, which opens next Wednesday, is called Holly Wouldn't, and it's like the films Hollywood wouldn't make. So,
Yep.
It's an improvised comedy show, so we all specialize in long-form improvised comedy. So a bunch of us trained in Chicago, LA, New York, at all the fancy improv schools that teach everyone who's on SNL and writes for all your favorite sitcoms. And we run shows here, and we're doing a format called the improvised movie. So we get a suggestion of a movie that Hollywood wouldn't make, and we make it before your very eyes. So we do the camera angles and the special effects and the director's commentary and all the fun stuff.
So that sounds like an absolutely amazing concept, but I want to talk to you a little bit about how did you first become involved with improv? Like you said, you've been overseas to study improv. How did you first get involved with the improv scene?
So I, like most comedians, was amidst a law degree and hated life, and decided I was going to go to America and figure out, because I was doing performing arts and law, so I figured out I was like going to go over there and see if that's something I wanted to pursue. Did a method acting course in New York, and I hadn't really done any improv aside from the odd drama, theatre sports games in Year 9 drama. So went over there, and people were I was taking a Meisner class, which is a very intense form of acting, and they were like, "Oh, you're pretty naturally funny. You should come check out our improv group." And I saw it, and like, I was all right, but there were people in there who were amazing, and I'm like, there's got to be something to this. People can't just be organically this hilarious. So, sure enough, I started doing my research, found out read like so many books on it, and did all the courses when I got back to Australia, and it's still like a pretty new art form in Australia. So then I was like, I want to learn more and more and more, and so went to Chicago where it all started, and learnt at Improv Olympic, which is the original kind of big improv comedy school where pretty much everyone from SNL came out of, and brought it back here, and we've been doing it ever since.
That's amazing. So for a show like Hollywood, what's that like for you? You're on stage, and then all of a sudden somebody throws an idea at you for what this film is going to be. What goes through your head at that moment?
Mm-hmm. Well, you the first thing, you sort of digest the suggestion. You're like, this feels like this would be in this movie, and you start painting a scene. So you kind of paint the opening 3 scenes. So you're like, so if it's a suggestion that, just yell anything. Just say anything, and I'll see what springs to mind.
The story of Donald Trump's life.
All right, great. So the story of Donald Trump's life. Like, so we open on a rustic mahogany bookshelf. We see an angry man sitting at a desk, and you sort of build from there, and you paint the details. He's smoking a Cuban cigar. He's got a picture of his 4th wife, and you kind of paint the scene bit by bit. And you do that 3 times, and then you kind of play it out and see where it goes. And just main thing is you have fun.
So do you almost have a bank of like characters in your head that you can throw to straight away if like that one of those characters fits the idea that the person from the audience has suggested?
Look, I mean, like, we all have kind of accents and kind of not fully fleshed out characters, but like, fun little mannerisms we default to when we're performing certain archetypes of characters. But it is really genuinely like, you get painted in with a physicality, and you kind of just take that on and just perform through that. So a lot of the characters are really genuinely kind of one of a kind and fit to the show you see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess everyone has their sort of default things they like as well. So sometimes they fall into that, but for the most part, they're, entirely original characters.
Now, I have to ask, what's been the weirdest thing that's ever been thrown at you when you've been doing an improv set?
Oh, weirdest thing, a few years ago, there was just in Adelaide Fringe, there was just some very vocal audience member, and they were doing it out of like love. They were having a ball and just laughing, and then like throwing their like commentary at us. But they were in the first row, so we kind of just naturally incorporated them into a scene.
Yep.
And got them up, and so they were like a little bit shocked, but they ran with it, and it was very fun. So that's probably the weirdest kind of overall interaction, but we're pretty good at thinking on our feet for the most part, no matter what. And the thing that people think they want to see is often not what they want to see. So you get a lot of people yelling out dildo and things.
Yeah.
And, trying to derail the show. But honestly, that's probably, that's, you hear that so many times, it's not even new.
Yeah.
So you probably can deal with that better than, cardboard box or something.
Yeah. So, mate, you were also part of a second show as well. Tell us a little bit about the second show that you're doing.
So the second show is a solo show I'm doing called Woo Woo. It's a sketch comedy show about aliens for the most part and fringe ideas. So, have you ever had someone rant to you about a conspiracy theory and then someone describe it as like, oh, they're a bit woo woo.
Yeah.
They don't believe in some things. So that's sort of the inspiration of the title. I guess I was inspired to write this show because, in July last year, America had legitimized UFOs, basically. They had a congressional hearing and exclaimed to the world, like, they exist. And we're studying them and we're spending a lot of money and we don't know the full story. So, and I was like, why isn't everyone talking about this?
Yeah, I remember when that broke because a few of my friends kind of host podcasts and radio shows that look at the paranormal, and they were all like, why wasn't this the opening thing on the news or the project? Like, what? Yeah. So, and it's still
not covered, to the extent which it should be.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the fundamental questions is, we have as humans, like, what happens when we die and are we alone in the universe? And, we probably should talk about the big things every now and then.
Yeah. So what kind of angle do you take with the show looking at that topic?
So I guess because it can be such a dense thing, and when I nerd out about stuff, I nerd out hard. So I've read like 25 books on it and, gone down the rabbit hole. So I'm like, no one wants to be at a lecture. So I've done it in a really lighthearted, fun way. So it's the characters surrounding like pop culture.
Yeah.
Because that's how like we've all been introduced to, extraterrestrials like, E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Mars Attacks and Independence Day and all those movies and X-Files. And that's kind of that kind of informs pop culture. So it's kind of making fun of the characters involved in in that pop culture. And the sort of narratives around that. So it's not a lecture. It's got some fun little sort of tidbits that are factual in it, but then that have happened. But then it's usually through characters. So it starts off with me doing regular stand-up, and then something goes terribly wrong, and I'm abducted by aliens and forced to perform on their planet.
Oh, that sounds very, very interesting. Because, of course, Melbourne has a very, very checkered past with this kind of thing. Like, I think it was back in the 60s when there was the time called the Westall incident. Yep,
the Westall incident happened just near where I was born.
Yeah, me
Clayton.
too. Yeah. I was in Oakley, yeah.
Yeah, so we're either side of it.
Yeah, and there's also...
Probably not alive when it happened, though.
No, but my dad was. My dad grew up in Clayton and actually remembers it very, very vividly happening. But the other one that's always thrown me as well is the plane that took off from Moorabbin Airport that was heading to Tasmania and disappeared over Bass Strait, because I've actually heard the radio recordings from that plane, and the guy talks about... he actually, first of all, asks the tower whether or not there's any military planes or Air Force planes in the area, because he's kind of getting buzzed, and plane disappeared, never to be seen again.
Yeah, because like so many people when they, when you start talking to them about this, they're like, oh yeah, but it only happens in America. I'm like, no, this happens everywhere.
Yeah,
Just like we you know, it's really interesting with those congressional hearings. They're changing all the terminology about it. Like, it's no longer UFO, because that's, you think of people in tinfoil hats and little green men. It's now UAP. So they're kind of like legitimizing the area and destigmatizing it. And it's like, this is slowly happening, whether or not we realize it. They've obviously got a controlled method of which they want to integrate this stuff into mainstream society and kind of undo some of that previous campaign, I guess, they've run to make people not talk about it.
Definitely. Well, hopefully your show will get people talking about it once again. And for all of our listeners out there, if you want to head along and see Damien's show, Woo Woo is on from the 8th of April right through to the 20th of April. So on 9:15 each night at Bard's Apothecary. I hope I've said that right. Apothecary, that's right. Yep, 9:15 each night. And all of those details are up on the subcultureentertainment.com website if you want more details and to grab tickets as well. And do you have the information there as well for Hollywooden?
Yeah, so I've got a poster lying around. So Hollywooden opens next Wednesday and goes to the 7th of April. It's at 7:15 and it's at the Grace Darling Hotel. Yep. 114 Smith Street, Collingwood. And
we will put all those details up on subcultureentertainment.com, and there'll be links to grab tickets to both shows up there as well. Damien, to finish off, if people are thinking about heading along to both or either show, what would you like to say to them?
Would love to have you there, and either one will be an absolute riot of a time.